And so I spent a weekend with James going around looking at the Kelly Cahill site. And then the great thing was I got to meet a whole lot of the people who'd been present at Westall as little kids.
The students, wow.
And I remember thinking, these people aren't lying. You know, this is real. And then the absolute clincher, the absolute gotcha moment for me was when Andrew Greenwood, who'd spoken previously to James Fox anonymously, he met me. He was the teacher, the science teacher, who had been on the quadrangle with these kids when, on the 6th of April, 1966, they looked up over the field and there were either 2 or 3 or maybe 1, nobody's quite sure, there are differing witness accounts, 1 to 3 objects hovering over the school playground. And there are 100 plus kids looking up at this objects, and they are metallic elliptical discs.
Yeah.
And as these kids watch, one of the objects lands in an area of forest, which is a place where the kids knew really, really well. And the hilarious thing is the kids knew that land better than the military, who came in their droves and secured the site shortly thereafter. But there's a whole lot of stories, some of which I think, frankly, don't make sense.
Sure.
There's some elaborate stories where some people claim that they touched the craft, and I'm not 100% sure about that. But I am in no doubt that a group of kids got close enough to see the craft from probably 5 meters away.
Yeah, this is not unlike, the Zimbabwe incident as well at the Ariel school.
It's very like
similar.
The Rua story.
Yeah.
But what I love about the Westall story, and it's coming up for the 60th anniversary, and I'm going to be there for it, hopefully, is the military and the intelligence
Air
community
Force presence.
Yep. Andrew Greenwood, the science teacher, speaks publicly to a local newspaper, a local a local suburban newspaper. And he says, I'm sure about what I saw, and there's the quotes of what he said in the newspaper are still available in the archives today. He gets, and this is why he agreed to talk to me, he gets a knock on his door late at night. He opens the door, and there's one man in Air Force uniform, Australian Air Force uniform, and there's another man in civilian clothes. And they basically threaten him, and he was angry about this, really angry. They threatened him that if he didn't shut up talking about what he'd seen, they would put around a story that he was an alcoholic and he would lose his job as a teacher. And that's why he didn't talk about it for most of the last 40, 50 years. And
was he an alcoholic? Did he drink?
No,
Not at all.
No. Well, he probably had a glass of wine at Christmas time.
Sure, yeah.
No, he wasn't an alcoholic. He was a really decent, honourable man.
Wow.
Sadly, he's passed away as well. But he, in I think the last 2 years of his life, he agreed to give a television interview to me, and he talked very candidly about what he saw. And he was adamant about what he saw being not a craft. He was very precise and very scientific. He said whatever it was some kind of metallic, coloured, elliptical-shaped object. He couldn't say that it was solid because he didn't touch it. He was very scientific and very careful, but very, very precise. And it was very interesting because I'd say there's probably, a dozen corroborative witnesses that I've spoken to. And there's an Australian researcher who's done some phenomenal work, and he's spoken to over 160 witnesses. There are people who saw Americans on the scene. And this is really interesting. There was a base called the Royal Australian Air Force Base Sale, about 3 or 4 hours drive north of Melbourne. And the Americans had been operating a secret U-2 spy plane flying over the Southern Oceans to monitor for radioactive plumes, radioactive residue from either Russian nuclear testing or somebody else. It might have been suspicions about South Africa. I doubt if it was at that time. But whoever it was,
satellite stuff, or
whoever it was, the kids that I spoke to, now adults in their 60s, they described American Jeeps turning up. People wearing American uniforms turning up at the school. They described being threatened by men dressed in civilian clothes. The whole school assembly was told to shut up about it. There was a real attempt to clamp it down. But what I loved about these kids, they're still really cheeky today. They love talking about it now that they're in their 60s. And I'm so looking forward to seeing them in April, because for them, this was a life-defining moment. Yeah. All their lives, they have lived with this reality of what they've seen. And, you've had groups like the Australian Skeptics gave me a Benk Fork Award because I was the journalist that said that, I gave this credibility. And for no good reason at all, absolutely no scientific basis to their assertions. They just sweepingly dismissed all of the evidence given by these multiple witnesses, first-hand witnesses, and just said it's just a bunch of school kids getting excited and confabulating, and they were excited about the Frederick Valentich case, and it's all nonsense.
Yeah, still to this day as adults.
And if you hear the passion from those people, there is no doubt in my mind that they are telling the truth and that they saw something anomalous. And the kicker for me was Andrew Greenwood having the courage before he passed to speak publicly about the fact that he had been threatened by somebody from what he believed was either military or an intelligence agency.
American.
Why? Well, we don't know.
I see.
We don't know.
Right.
Why shut down a legitimate public inquiry into what was obviously anomalous phenomena? Why?
So, that brings me to an interesting question, because, we're often faced with like this deliberate secrecy, this cover up, and we hear about it so much through the Men in Black and through all these other, the legacy program. But at what point in today's sort of UFO sphere, do you think we go from deliberate secrecy to just sort of like institutional confusion? Because we are dealing with that as well. Like there is this, like with Congress and everything, I can't help but think that they don't know very much. Like it's the gestalt that I get. It's the feeling that I get when I listen to the news. It doesn't seem like very many people are in on anything. But then you hear about these Americans turning up at these sites. Like, what's the connection there?
Okay, I think there's been a change since 2017. I'm really lucky because I started talking to some quite senior people in Congress on background, like not on the record, before a lot of this became public and before the decision was made, for example, by the Pentagon to acknowledge in 2021 in that original report from their, I've forgotten what it was called at the time. It wasn't the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. It was some other ones of their stupid names.
Was it OSAP? No, it wasn't.
OSAP.
OSAP, yeah.
But they published a report in 2021 acknowledging that UAPs are real. Whatever they are, they're real. They're not something that can be discounted. That, for me, was a huge turning point in, I think, public awareness of the issue. But before that time, I would say that a lot of the people in Congress were genuinely oblivious, including, I can say this, members of the Gang of Eight.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled rank with a few people I knew from other stories I'd done to get access to 2 members of the Gang of Eight in that period. And the Gang of Eight, as you would know, is a group of senior politicians, the Senate Majority Leader, the House Majority Leader, senior people, both sides of politics, who are entrusted to review in the oversight committees the most sensitive secrets of all. And it's largely because there is still, I think, a contumelious disregard in the intelligence community and the military for the idea of oversight by Congress, because they believe very strongly that Congress can't be trusted with secrets.
That's right.
And they're probably right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this lies at the heart of the cover-up of the legacy.
Is a lot of that unacknowledged special access programs. Like those things don't go through these sort of committee hearings.
So this hilarious categorization that they have for compartmentalized secrets, we all know what a special access program is. It's essentially a secret, a compartmentalized secret. And then there are unacknowledged special access programs, and then the biggest one of all are the WUSAPs, the waived unacknowledged special access programs. The WUSAPs and the ASAPs, if you like, they are generally put before the Gang of Eight. And it means that there's still congressional oversight. The idea is that there's still congressional oversight by a group of trusted people who can be trusted with those secrets. And that, frankly, doesn't really work in practice. And there's still, I think, holding back of information.
There has to be.
By the CIA, by the defense community, because they don't trust.
They'll give them breadcrumbs and throw them a bone. But
yeah. And I mean, there's a whole series of histories. One of my favorite series of books is, histories of the CIA and how the CIA has basically hidden stuff from Congress over the years. And I put myself into their position as an intelligence agency trying to protect the security of operations they're trying to run. I'm not making excuses for them because the law says very clearly they are obliged to reveal this information to Congress, and accountability is enshrined in the Constitution, the US Constitution. So there is a legal requirement that this be done, but it hasn't been being done. But what I'm coming to answer your question, what I found was there were people who were denying knowledge to me of any kind of program categorically in about 2018, 2019, 2020. And then when I went back to them after that moment, when in 2021, the Pentagon had made the admission that there are UAPs, they were evasive. And I think what's happened in the interim is certain members of the Gang of Eight, not all of them, have been read in. They've been told. And I think this is what's going to be used as an attempt to rescue the tattered reputations of the Pentagon and the intelligence community when the truth does finally come out that they've been lying to the public and indeed to presidents for many decades. I think they're going to use the excuse that certain members of Congress over the years have been read in. For example, I'm pretty sure Senator John McCain was very much aware of the legacy retrieval reverse engineering program.
On what grounds?
I can't say.
Okay.
But I'm very sure that John McCain was.
Is that secondhand or firsthand information? Do you get that from someone who knew him, or do you get that from?
I get that from somebody who knew him.
Yeah. Very well?
Very well.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't doubt for a moment that there have been key people in the Congress who've been entrusted with this information. I think that's how, when it comes out in the wash.
By whom though? Like that, because by another government entity that's unacknowledged, or by some faction that's completely removed?
There really is, as batty as this sounds, there really is a control group.
A cabal of like...
I had a situation when I was talking to David Grush, and David Grush...
Sorry, the control group that you just mentioned, you think that this is outside of any government jurisdiction? You think that
these are people working in government in a lot of the cases, but a lot of them, I'd say the majority of them, are people working in private aerospace.
Right, and they together form this other entity that doesn't abide by any rules.
I mean, they're in all of the well-known aerospace companies, Battelle, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman,
Raytheon.
Boeing, Raytheon. These are people who have been regarded as a safe pair of hands. Often they've come through the route of the CIA, science, technology. They're safe people to be entrusted with the secret, and they've been read in, briefed into the program, and periodically they will bring into the loop key politicians who are trusted. I'm thinking of one in particular. I'm not going to name him. I had an incident when I was doing some research a year ago, and I know what a certain senator was told by a source of mine, and I know he has lied to the public about what he's been told. And it's quite galling to me because he's clearly made a decision as a member of the Gang of Eight to completely mislead.
Democrat or Republican?
I can't tell you.
I have a feeling it's Democrat.
Oh, really? Okay, that's an interesting guess. But what I'm fascinated by is there's been a change. And I think what's happened is the legacy program were treating Congress with utter contempt and not briefing anyone. And that for a large part of the last 50, 60 years has been the status quo.
So they've no new friends is the idea.
But what they've done in the last year or two, particularly, is they've started briefing in select senators in particular. I don't think they trust the House at all.
They've been doing that out of their hands are forced because of their dying out, or like what's the reason behind that, you think?
Oh, no, I think they're scrambling to protect themselves
I see.
in the event that this does become disclosed.
Right, and they get sued.
I'm in little doubt that there is some kind of an executive order that regulates a quasi-legality to the continued secrecy of the retrieval reverse engineering program.
To national security.
People I've spoken to who are constitutional lawyers, really top constitutional lawyers, tell me that they cannot see any basis under which, for example, successive presidents could be bound into not being able to be briefed, even when they asked for it, like Clinton did, by, say, an executive order that was passed by Eisenhower or Truman. And it's not an apocryphal story, I'm told, that there is a secret executive order that was signed probably during the Truman administration. There was one also done during the Eisenhower administration, and that this enshrined the legacy retrieval reverse engineering program and kept it secret from Congress.